My husband left me to die in a burning mansion. I was 7 months pregnant, and he walked away hand in hand with his assistant. But I didn't die. And when I walked out of those flames, I carried more than a baby in my belly. I carried the one secret that could destroy everything he had ever built. His empire, his reputation, his freedom, and I was going to use it. My name is Cassandra Hale. 31 years old, I used to believe in love, in family, in building a future together. But the night Nathan chose her over me, the night the fire swallowed our home, something inside me broke and something else woke up. A part of me I didn't know existed strong, sharp, and unforgiving. Now I want to ask you something. If the person you trusted most tried to erase you from their life, would you let them succeed? Or would you fight back with everything they didn't know you had? Let me know in the comments. Have you ever survived something that changed you forever? And if you're new here, subscribe to EN Reddit Story. This story will shake you. But what comes after might just restore your faith in justice. Before the fire, my world was beautiful. At least on the outside, I lived in the Hale estate, 10 sprawling acres just outside Fort Worth, Texas. It was the kind of place people drove past slowly, just to catch a glimpse. Gated, manicured, perfect white marble floors, custom art from Florence chandeliers that dripped crystal, and a husband who kissed me on the forehead each morning before disappearing into his phone. Nathan Hale, real estate mogul, business genius. The kind of man who always got the deal. And for a long time, I believed I was part of the one thing he wouldn't negotiate. Our marriage, I met Nathan when I was 23. He was already climbing fast, building Hale Development from nothing. I was in med school then on my second year. He came in with a real estate pitch to the board where my father served. He was charming, brilliant, ambitious, dangerous in the way only rich men can be. And when he set his eyes on me, I thought I was lucky I dropped out the next year. I told people it was my choice, that I wanted to support Nathan full-time. But in truth, he made it clear we couldn't both chase dreams. At first it was easy. He built, I hosted, I designed the interiors of our properties, picked tiles for model homes, posed beside him at charity events. I smiled like the wife of a king, even if I often felt like his ornament. Then came Delilah Shore, 27, corporate-savvy Ivy League polish, hired as his personal assistant. Nathan called her a miracle in stilettos. I called her what she was calculated. Delilah had a way of sliding into rooms like she belonged. She laughed too loud at his jokes, and her eyes lingered too long. But every time I questioned it, Nathan waved it off. She's just good at her job, Cass. Don't get jealous. It's not attractive. And so I stayed quiet. I watched until silence became survival. When I got pregnant, I expected a change, a return of warmth. Instead, I got a man who frowned at the test and asked, "Are you sure?" Still, I held on to hope. Decorated a nursery. Read books about motherhood. Told myself we were just going through a phase. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Nathan stopped coming home on time. Delilah started spending nights at off-site retreats. And the house grew colder, not in temperature, but in presence, like something was creeping beneath the walls. I began waking up to the smell of ash when no fireplace was lit. I'd catch glimpses of movement in the gardens late at night. And once I found a burnt matchstick by the guest wing hallway. Staff dismissed it. Nathan blamed the ventilation. But my instincts told me different. Something was coming, and no one, not Nathan, not Delilah, not even the lavish silence of our estate was going to warn me in time. That night I felt it in my bones, the way a deer senses the breath of a hunter just behind the trees. But I didn't know that by morning I'd no longer be a wife. I'd be a survivor. It started with smoke. Faint at first, like the ghost of a match long since blown out. But it grew. And so did my dread. I remember standing in the drawing room that night, watching the wind twist the curtains. The chandeliers shimmered like always. But the air was wrong, too still, too dry, and laced with something acrid. Something I couldn't name. I pressed a hand over my belly. 7 months along. My baby kicked as if sensing what I couldn't yet see. I left the room and stepped into the corridor. The marble floor, normally cold and polished, felt oddly warm beneath my bare feet. A draft of something unfamiliar brushed past me, heat. I called out for Nathan, no answer. At that hour, he was usually in his private study, an off-limits chamber that smelled of scotch and expensive leather. I walked there slowly at first, then quicker until I reached the heavy oak door. It was locked. That had never happened before. I leaned in, heard voices. Not just his, Delilah. Her voice was unmistakable, smooth, sharp, slippery. They were whispering, low, fast, urgent. I knocked. No response. My chest tightened. I rattled the doorknob. Then I pounded Nathan. Silence. Nathan, open this door. Something's wrong. I smell smoke. The door flew open. Nathan stood there, towering cold. But it wasn't his size that froze me. It was his expression. Blank, calculated, like he was weighing me against something. It's just the fireplaces, he said quickly. Vents are acting up again. I tried to peek around him. Delilah was in the shadows, unmoving. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. Please, I said. Just check with me. Nathan's face softened just a fraction, then his hand went to my shoulder. Go lie down, Cassandra, he said, guiding me away. I'll send someone to look at it. But I knew that tone. That gentle, tight-lipped smile he used when he didn't want a scene. When I was an obstacle, I walked away because I had no choice, because arguing would have done nothing. Halfway up the grand staircase, the smell thickened. Now it wasn't just smoke, it was fire. The kind that licks at your lungs before your brain even registers the danger. The kind that makes your vision shimmer. I shouted for help. No answer, not from the footman, not from the housekeeper, not from Nathan. Only the creak of wood and the faint pop of something shattering behind a door. I turned a corner and saw it flames licking beneath the doorframe of the guest bedroom. The hallway bathed in flickering orange. I froze. This wasn't a malfunction. This was arson. I reached for the doorknob but recoiled. It seared my palm. Still I pushed it open. Just an inch enough to see the inferno inside. Furniture melted. The walls blackened. A figure slumped by the window, motionless. Was it Staff? A stranger I didn't know. I couldn't breathe. Help, I screamed. Nathan, then hands grabbed my shoulders. Relief surged. But when I turned, it was him, Nathan. His face held no relief. Only irritation. Are you trying to kill yourself? He snapped, dragging me back, and the baby I tried to speak to explain what I'd seen. But smoke choked my voice. There's someone in there, I coughed. He didn't listen, he didn't check. Instead, he let me know, pushed me toward the stairs, but not toward safety. Not toward the front door. He turned. Toward Delilah. She was already waiting at the foot of the stairs, her arms out, her face panicked. But only for him, and then I saw it. The truth. It was never about me. Nathan had made his choice. In that moment, I stopped being his wife, and I became his collateral. Nathan, please, I whispered, my throat raw, my lungs already stinging from smoke. He didn't answer, didn't even look back. He took Delilah's hand, and together they ran, through the haze, through the flames, leaving me behind like a forgotten shadow. That's the last thing I remember before the explosion. It wasn't massive, not like the movies, just enough. Something inside the guest wing burst glass gas. I don't know. But the force slammed me into the wall, knocking the wind from my body. I hit the marble hard, the breath stolen from my lungs, and I lay there curled, trembling, shielding my belly with both arms. Above me the ceiling groaned. I could hear it, wood bending, plaster cracking. The floorboards upstairs were beginning to collapse. And Nathan, he was gone. I couldn't see him, couldn't hear him. No frantic footsteps coming back for me. No scream of Cassandra. No remorse. Just fire, just silence, just abandonment. I don't know how I stood. I think it was instinct. The kind that lives in a mother before she even meets her child. I stumbled, fell, crawled. Every corner of the hallway looked the same, blurred orange and deadly. I called for help once more. Still nothing. The staff, where were they? Why hadn't anyone tried to evacuate? And then it hit me. The sprinkler system, it hadn't activated. Nathan had spent a fortune installing it, boasted about it to every guest, said it was military-grade fail-proof. So why wasn't it working? Was this planned? No, it couldn't be. Except, it could. He had locked the study door, whispered with Delilah lead to me, and now he'd left with her deliberately while I was still inside. It was too much, too horrific to believe, and yet too deliberate to ignore. I turned into a side hallway, shielding my face with the sleeve of my robe. That's when I heard it, a voice. Distant, muffled male, Mrs. Hale. It was Thomas, the footman. Barely more than a kid, always so polite and quiet. I tried to respond, but only coughed. Then his face emerged through the haze, eyes wide, fire extinguisher in one hand. "Come on," he shouted, grabbing my arm. He guided me, half carrying me down the back staircase, my knees buckling under me. I don't know how we made it. We passed the scullery, the pantry, the wine cellar door. All of it glowing, cracking, disintegrating. When the back door finally opened and the cold night air hit my skin, I collapsed, grass under my knees, stars above my head, and the taste of oxygen, sharp, precious, flooding my chest. I heard voices, other staff screaming, crying. Someone wrapped me in a blanket. Someone else shouted for an ambulance. But all I could do was look at the mansion, my home. Now a cathedral of fire, and I searched for him. For Nathan, he wasn't there. No ash-covered silhouette, no soot-streaked face desperate to find me. Just flames. And as paramedics rushed toward me, I heard someone gasp. A black car tore away from the front drive. It was sleek. Familiar, it was Nathan's. And in the passenger seat, I saw her, Delilah, alive, unburned, unbothered. And I knew without a shred of doubt he had never planned to save me. The hospital room smelled of bleach and plastic. Too clean, too quiet. A cruel contrast to the chaos I'd just survived. I lay there, oxygen tubes in my nose, heart monitor beeping beside me, my ribs ached. My eyes were still raw from smoke. But I was alive, and so was my daughter. That was the first miracle. The second came in the form of a woman named Ruthie Spencer. She was my mother's oldest friend, a retired school teacher who lived on the far side of town. When she saw my name in the news, "Pregnant wife survives mansion blaze," she didn't hesitate. She showed up at the hospital with fresh clothes, tears in her eyes, and a place for me to stay. "I've got a guest room and 2 arms that still know how to hold a baby," she said. And just like that, I had a roof over my head. Not a palace, not marble floors, but safety and warmth. More than Nathan had ever given me. Detective Jonah Carter visited 2 days later. He was kind, methodical, but I saw the questions in his eyes. He wanted to ask what I wasn't saying, so I told him the truth. At least part of it. That Nathan had left me, that he saved Delilah instead. That I didn't know where he went, but I didn't tell him what I suspected. Not yet, because deep down, I knew. If I was going to bring down a man like Nathan Hale, I needed more than grief. I needed proof. The media exploded. Drone shots of the mansion ruins. Speculation about the fire, whispers of insurance fraud. Nathan was traveling for business. Delilah was unreachable for comment. No one knew they'd fled together. No one but me. And so I began to plan. I started with the files. Back when we still pretended to be a team, Nathan let me handle our charity wing, his good wife optics as he called it. That meant I had access to donor records, board memos, and unintentionally copies of old company ledgers. I pulled out everything I could remember. Ruthie storing in her garage boxes labeled Hale Holdings, Archive. And there it was. A pattern wire transfers to obscure accounts. Overseas properties in shell company names. Pre-approvals for an insurance policy worth 8 figures issued just 6 weeks before the fire. But that wasn't the breakthrough. That came when I remembered Martin Graves, Nathan's old accountant, the one he fired after a compliance disagreement. Martin had always been nervous. He'd sweat through his collars and stammer in meetings, but he was honest. I remembered that I found his number on an old gala contact list. When I called, he didn't pick up. But the next day he texted me one word, coffee. We met at a diner off the interstate. He looked older, thinner, pale, like someone always waiting for a knock at the door. I told him everything. And when I finished, he pushed a small USB drive across the table. "I was scared," he whispered, "but I saved copies of the worst ones." "What's on here?" I asked. "Enough to make him sweat. Maybe even enough to bury him." I took it. I didn't flinch, because that's the moment I stopped surviving and started fighting back. I handed the USB to Detective Carter the next morning. We sat in a small police station room with beige walls and a humming desktop. He plugged it in, and together we watched the truth spill out. Transactions, shell companies. Millions moved into holding accounts tied to Monaco, the Caymans, even Liechtenstein. All pointing to one conclusion: Nathan had planned this. Maybe not the exact night, maybe not the precise way, but the intention was clear. He wanted the estate gone, the money claimed, the wife removed. Carter looked at me when the last file loaded, his voice low. This isn't just shady. This is federal crime territory. Can you arrest him? I asked. Not yet, he said. But this gives us teeth. We were building a case. Then came the letter, delivered by courier from a law office in Houston. Franklin Dorsey. He claimed to represent William Hale, Nathan's late father. The letter was a bombshell, a private trust. Left to me contingent on two things: if the Hale estate was destroyed under suspicious circumstances, and if Nathan ever disappeared or was criminally investigated. It wasn't just a trust, it included controlling shares of Hale Holdings. Shares William had hidden away. Shares meant to protect the company from his son's ambition. Shares that now belonged to me. And in that moment I realized I didn't need revenge. I needed power. And I had just inherited the means to take everything from the man who tried to burn me alive. The boardroom at Hale Holdings looked nothing like the hospital where I nearly died. But as I walked in 8 months pregnant, dressed in a tailored navy dress that framed my swollen belly, it felt just as suffocating. 12 leather chairs surrounded a long mahogany table. Behind glass walls, a city skyline blinked through the morning fog. And inside that room, a dozen high-powered executives waited for one thing: to see if the woman they once dismissed could take control of a crumbling empire. Harold Singh was the first to nod as I entered. Then Deborah Mills. They were ready, but the others. They still doubted. I stood at the head of the table. My fingers trembled slightly, but not from fear, from the weight of what I was about to do. Thank you all for coming, I began. As you know, our company's founder, Nathan Hale, has been absent since the fire that destroyed the Hale estate. Recent events have raised serious legal and ethical questions about his conduct. This morning, I present evidence that I am now the legal majority shareholder of Hale Holdings, via a trust established by William Hale, Nathan's father. I pressed the remote. The projector screen behind me lit up. Document scans, signatures, legal seals. The proof. I am not here to destroy Hale Holdings, I said calmly. I am here to save it from the man who lit the match. Silence. Then Charles Bentley spoke. He was Nathan's closest ally on the board, a silver-haired man with eyes like polished stone. You're pregnant, untrained. And this company is bleeding, he sneered. What makes you think you're capable of leading anything? I didn't flinch. Because while Nathan fled, I stayed, I said. While your CEO ran to Monaco with his assistant, I gave your financials to federal investigators. While your staff lost their jobs, I fed them. And while this company's reputation rotted in the tabloids, I stood here and did the one thing none of you dared to do. Face the truth. Harold Singh slammed the gavel. We will vote. The process was slow. One by one, voices echoed through the room, aye or nay. Fingers tapped, pens clicked, and then it was done. The count was narrow, but legal. I was appointed interim CEO of Hale Holdings. Applause was hesitant, murmurs filled the air. But I didn't hear them. I was too focused on what came next. That was when Detective Carter stepped into the room. He gave me a subtle nod, then leaned toward me and whispered, "He's here." At first I didn't understand. Then the doors flew open, and Nathan walked in. He looked just like he had the day he left me, except for one thing. His eyes, they were wild. Delilah trailed behind him, face pale, her heels clicking too fast on the tile. Gasps swept the boardroom. Nathan strode to the table, ignoring Carter, ignoring the guards, ignoring the stunned silence. "You think you've won," he spat at me. "This company is mine, no." I said, standing tall, "It was never yours. You just burned everything your father built." He laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "You're just a scared little girl in a suit that doesn't fit." I stepped forward. "I'm the woman you left in a burning house, and I'm still standing." That was the moment Carter spoke. "Nathan Hale, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, obstruction of justice, and federal financial crimes." Carter held up the warrant. Delilah stepped back, her hands raised. She didn't say a word. Nathan's fist clenched, his body coiled like a spring. But then he saw the armed officers behind Carter. Reality hit him, and slowly, he raised his hands. "You'll regret this," he said to me. His voice was cold, venomous. I leaned closer. Voice calm. "You tried to kill me. Now you'll rot in a cage. I call that balance." They cuffed him in silence. Reporters snapped photos through the glass. Flashbulbs popped. And just like that, Nathan Hale, the man who once ruled skyscrapers, was led away like a thief in broad daylight. He tried to glare at me one last time, but I didn't return it. I was already looking ahead to what came next. The trial was swift, at least for something that big. Delilah cut a deal within days. She gave them everything: texts, emails, voice memos. Even confirmed that Nathan had sabotaged the sprinklers himself. She claimed she didn't know he meant to leave me to die. I didn't believe her, but her testimony helped seal the case. Nathan was found guilty on multiple counts: fraud, destruction of property, attempted insurance scam on a massive scale. They couldn't prove he meant to kill me. Too many shadows, not enough evidence, but I didn't need that verdict because I'd already survived. The day he was sentenced, I sat in the back of the courtroom, my daughter Amara Hope asleep in Ruthie's arms. I watched the judge hand down a 27-year sentence. Nathan looked back at me. For a flicker of a second, I wondered, would there be regret, remorse? There wasn't just hate, as if I was the villain for refusing to die quietly. I didn't flinch, I didn't smile, I just turned away and closed the chapter. In the months that followed, I rebuilt the company from the inside, promoted ethics officers, set up a foundation for women escaping domestic violence, launched a childcare program for employees. Every choice was deliberate, every policy a small rebellion against the legacy Nathan tried to leave behind. My daughter grew stronger with every sunrise, and so did I. Sometimes I still wake up from nightmares, flames, smoke, the feeling of being left behind. But then I hear Amara laugh, or feel her tiny fingers wrap around mine, and I remember. I walked through the fire, not just to survive, but to become someone my daughter could look up to. Moral sometimes. Betrayal gives birth to something stronger than revenge. It gives you purpose. What do you think of this story if you were in Cassandra's shoes, watching your own husband leave you to die? What would you have done? Would you have found the strength to rise, to rebuild not just your life, but take back everything he tried to erase? Because here's the truth. We don't always get to choose the fire, but we do get to choose what we carry out of it. Cassandra didn't walk away with rage. She walked away with resolve, with a child in her arms, and the strength to reshape her future. There's something powerful about that, about facing the worst kind of betrayal and refusing to let it define you. So now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from, or just share your own moment when everything seemed lost, but you rose anyway. And if you believe in stories where justice still finds its way back, give this video a like. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their strength. And don't forget to subscribe to EN Reddit Story, because more than just stories, we tell survival. And survival is just the beginning.